The official deadline is still weeks away, but major trades in the NHL are shaking up your fantasy squad. We're breaking it all down on today's show.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, my fantasy fanatics? Welcome back inside the lab to everything you need in 30 minutes for fantasy hockey. It is the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Shout out to the everydayers who continue to hold us down, making us your first listen every single day, putting us as the number one sports podcast network out there here on the Locked On Sports Podcast Network. Mr. Rodin, we have major trades already percolating the NHL, and that will have impact not only on the teams getting the big name players, but also on the clubs giving up some of these pieces of talent. So we'll break it all down. The Calgary Flames, Vegas Golden Knights, Rasmus Andersson, Kiefer Sherwood, the Vancouver Canucks, and the San Jose Sharks. Big time bets, lots to get to. Take it wherever you want, my friend, because as much as these two players don't exactly fall into the superstar realm, they very much have fantasy value.
And it's just a perfect coincidence that when we were about to do a Pacific Division check-in episode, you get the monster trade between the Calgary Flames, Vegas Golden Knights, and the Vancouver Canucks trading Sherwood to the San Jose Sharks. Let's talk about that trade between the Calgary Flames and Vegas Golden Knights. Every single year, it seems like the Golden Knights organizations is making a gigantic splash before the trade deadline, beginning of the season, or even at the trade deadline. And they acquire Rasmus Andersson. In return, the Calgary Flames get Zach Whitecloud, Abraham Weeb, a 2017 first-round pick, which is top 10 protected, and a conditional 2028 second-round pick, which I believe will turn into a first-round pick in 2028 if the Vegas Golden Knights win the Stanley Cup this season. It's a monster trade for them. It helps them kind of, set in stone once again, them being an elite defensive core back there on the blue line. And I kind of want to just run through the history of the trades the Vegas Golden Knights have made since entering the league, starting back in 2019 when they acquired Mark Stone from the Ottawa Senators. They get Chandler Stevenson from the Capitals, Alec Martinez, Robin Leonard at the time when he was one of the top goaltenders in the league. You look back to the Jack Eichel trade as well from the Buffalo Sabres, Aiden Hill from the San Jose Sharks, Teddy Bluger, Riley Smith, Anthony Mantha, Noah Hannafin last year, Thomas Hertl last year, Ivan Barbashev a few years ago. This team, this organization knows how to get deals done. And this is a cutthroat business. They don't mess around. They don't care really about loyalty whatsoever. They want championships. They want banners in there at T-Mobile Arena. And this is how they get it done. A great addition to the blue line. Fantasy value-wise for Rasmus Andersson, I think you will lose a little bit of value because the primary and secondary blue liners in Noah Hannafin, in Shea Theodore will mostly be getting the power play time, which Rasmus Andersson loses in this instance, coming from Calgary, which I believe he quarterbacked the first power play unit. So he'll lose some fantasy value, but he's been honestly terrific this entire season. Preseason, going into the year, he was ranked 97th. He's currently ranked 67th. He's got 30 points in 48 games. He's having one of his better better seasons offensively this year. He's on pace for actually a career high 50-plus points. So again, I think you're going to lose some value fantasy-wise because he's dropping off the first power play unit from Calgary and coming here to Vegas. He's still going to be a terrific defenseman in the fantasy hockey realm, but great trade for Vegas. I think Calgary, you get as much as you can in return. You get a couple of draft picks. You get Zach Whitecloud, who's a pretty steady defenseman on the back end. So overall, good trade both sides. But this is a dangerous Vegas Golden Knights team that I think at this point can give any team a run for their money.
And we can talk about the Calgary Flames side of things in a second here. I guess what really jumps to top of mind for me for Rasmus Andersson is when I look at this guy's numbers over the last couple of years, and to a statistic last year at a minus 38, he finished at plus minus wise. This is going to be one of the benefits of playing on the Vegas Golden Knights. Some of those smaller categorical angles are definitely going to catch a boost. But overall, I'm with you because also, let's be clear, ice time is going to be a bit of a concern now when talking about what he was going to get in Calgary as that number one guy playing well over 24 minutes a night, Steele. I don't see it in Vegas. And along with that, reduced ice time. And that's not because of him. That's just because of how good the blue line core is around him. So therefore, less time on the ice, less opportunity. However, what this means for the Vegas Golden Knights in the standings could be huge. This is a team that's not struggling and really trying to address an issue. This is a team dealing from a position of strength. And I think, Steele, really trying to augment what Alex Petrangelo's presence would have been here
Great
down
point.
and into springtime hockey. This team is in first place in the Pacific Division. We'll get to the Central later in the week. But for now, looking at this division, you got Aiden Hill back now in the fold as well in Vegas. The vibes are high, meaning it's time to take a look at some of the pieces that you might be able to get a hold of in Vegas. I'm talking about on the second line with Dorofeyev and Mitch Marner. How about Riley Smith? How about down on the third line having a good year, Thomas Hertl? Or you take a look at my boy plug and play on the top line, Ivan Barbashev once again with Jack Eichel. Some of those pieces, I think, Steele, could see a little boost. Intriguing enough, though, this team, once again, just gets better. But is it a white flag from the Calgary Flames, perhaps?
It might be. And we still have to see what happens potentially with Blake Coleman, with Nazem Kadri. There's a lot of rumors circling around those two players' name, maybe heading out east before the trade deadline. But I think that's the main concern with this Vegas Golden Knights team now is if they can get consistent goaltending. You get Aiden Hill back after a long absence to injury. Wasn't a great return against the Toronto Maple Leafs. I know they came out with the W in that game, but was a little bit rocky to start off the period. And again, I think that's all the Vegas Golden Knights need now. If they can get Aiden Hill back into true form from even just the Stanley Cup run a few years ago, before he went down to injury, this is a very dangerous team. And I think they will give any team a run for their money, especially that top team in the Colorado Avalanche in this Western Conference. I actually had the Vegas Golden Knights to win the Stanley Cup this season before the season started. So I'm feeling more confident now with this trade, with this massive trade they just made.
Zach Whitecloud on the other side of things for the Calgary Flames, a very kind of steady as she goes defensive defenseman here. 2 goals, 5 assists in 7 games for 7 points. I don't think this is a spot where I say go out there and add Zach Whitecloud. However, if he is going to take on a much larger role, Steele, and, looking at his ice time, 18 minutes in time on ice, if the minutes need to go around, this guy's going to play quote-unquote top pairing minutes right there alongside or with Mackenzie Weegar in that same kind of role for the Calgary Flames. Maybe you can add him on a week-to-week situation. Maybe he starts to fit in very nicely in Calgary. I don't know if that's an angle I'm going to tell you to auto go out there and do. However, 73 hits, 63 block shots. Maybe he's a banger league beauty if he fits in Calgary. These are the angles that you want to stay on top of. I guess I'll leave it at this before we shift to the second trade and 2 more teams in this Pacific Division. Is Steele, when I'm talking about the Calgary Flames and where they're sitting in that division, and hit me with your take on this, this has to be a white flag because they've actually played pretty good hockey over the last few weeks. And I know 5-5 isn't something that you are really getting overly hyped up about. But if also Coleman's in the mix and Nas is in the mix for a conversation, we know how important Rasmus Andersson was to the success of the back end of this team. I would say it's only a matter of time before names start to fly out of Calgary, and there could be more fantasy value to pounce on there.
And I truly believe that the Calgary Flames, when you look at what they've done and what they're probably going to do again when it comes to Nazem Kadri and Blake Coleman potentially at the NHL trade deadline, that I know a lot of teams don't like to use the word rebuild. They like to use the word retool. And that's what we heard Chris Drury do for the New York Rangers in that statement he released the other day. And I think that's what you're going to get here as well from the Calgary Flames. I think you're going to get a monster return from a guy like Nazem Kadri, who has a ton of experience. He has a Stanley Cup ring with him as well. A guy like Blake Coleman, you could get maybe a first-round pick for his depth position and, again, veteran experience that he brings to the table. The big thing for me, and maybe it doesn't happen this year, more so maybe for the near future, going into 2026-2027 season. But what is this going to do for a guy like Zane Parekh? And I know they weren't happy with Parekh at the World Juniors and some of the comments he made about being able to speak more freely on the international stage compared to the NHL stage when it comes to talking to the media. But Zane Parekh is going to be a darn good defenseman in this league. Offensive upside through the roof. Again, so the departure of Rasmus Andersson, what will that do for a guy like Zane Parekh? We actually just saw our good friend and hockey community savant Blake Creamer pick up Zane Parekh in our fantasy league. So maybe he knows something that we don't, but that could mean
possible
boost in value for a guy like Parekh on the back end in the Calgary Flames organization.
I think this is a real strong indication, too, of there are a number of good young players coming up in this Calgary Flames system. They've got their goaltending sorted out. Maybe you're just really trying to shuffle the deck here and make sure Kyle Conroy knows what he's doing in that front office. Craig Conroy, sorry about that. Anyway, more angles to talk about impacting your club right after the break. Big-time bets at the end of every show, as always. This Kiefer Sherwood trade steal, I need to pick your brain on it. The San Jose Sharks add another wrinkle to their attack. A lot more to break down the rest of the week. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Nothing like being near the ice during the hockey season. The speed, the hits, the atmosphere, it's unmatched. Watching at home is great. Being in the building is a completely different experience. The only thing that used to get in the way was getting those ducats. Long queues, endless screens, prices changing at checkout. That's why the Game Time app gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing NHL tickets and experiences just in a few taps. Pull up the Game Time app. Check out upcoming NHL games. Super easy to get tickets for our local Leafs, especially right now. Red hot. The app is so easy to use, browsing, comparing, buying tickets. Couple of taps, couple of minutes, you're good to go. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account. Redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Game Time.
And thank you so much for making Locked On Fantasy Hockey your first listen every single day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. We really do appreciate that. If you haven't already, make sure you go check out the new Everydayer Club. You will get access to ad-free audio feed for Locked On Fantasy Hockey or any Locked On channel you want to participate in. It's compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, every other major podcast app out there. You also get members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord servers, including Flip and I in the Fantasy Hockey Discord server chat. We want to continue to grow that hockey community. So if you want to join, ask us any questions, just kind of, hang. It's a hangout area after the games, during the games. We'll throw the times in when we're in there during big nights as well. So we want to see that community grow. It's for $5 a month or $50 a year. The Everydayer Club. You can find the link in the description below. It's also at lockedonfantasyhockey.supercast.com, or like I said, the link in the description to learn more about the Everydayer Club on Locked On. We appreciate you out there. Hit that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. Another massive trade coming from the Pacific Division, Flip. The San Jose Sharks acquire Kiefer Sherwood from the Vancouver Canucks. In return, the Canucks get Cole Clayton, a 2026 second-round pick, and a 2027 second-round pick. We knew this was going to happen. After the Quinn Hughes trade, this is a team that is definitely waving the white flag, and this is a rebuild. This is not a retool. This is a rebuild. You trade JT Miller. You trade Quinn Hughes. There's rumors swirling around Elias Pettersson as well. We'll get to that and maybe some other fantasy targets that you can maybe acquire before trades to happen. But Kiefer Sherwood, he lands on the San Jose Sharks roster, a team that is battling for a playoff spot right now, unlike the Canucks. And I think fantasy value-wise, again, sort of along the same lines as Rasmus Andersson. If it's a banger league, Kiefer Sherwood's going to be one of the top players in the league. He has 210 hits on the season. He's shooting the puck a ton, 109 shots on goal. Yeah. He's already up to 17 goals on the season. Career high 19 last year. He's got 23 points in 44 games. He's shooting the puck a ton. He uses his body out there. He's a energizer for any organization that has him. So banger league beauty, obviously, of course. If it's straight up point league, you're going to lose some fantasy value, depending on if he's in the top 6 or in the bottom 6.
And I think really what it depends on for me, Steele, is when I look at his ability to score goals on the power play this year. He has 6 power play markers on a Vancouver Canucks team that struggled mightily on the man advantage. And I know the San Jose Sharks have also had their issues. But when I'm looking at if he fits the mold on the right side, right, as a natural right winger where Chernyshov is playing currently on the top power play unit with Will Smith and Macklin Celebrini, then I might be taking a look at this addition a little bit differently. However, your take is still accurate. The deployment here, though, and the value for Kiefer Sherwood, aside from the intriguing angle of what are the San Jose Sharks up to here, is if he's deployed on the top power play unit and forms some chemistry, getting points on the man advantage, then I could see this shaking out with a whole bunch more value for Kiefer Sherwood. I want to turn it back over to you after I pose this. The San Jose Sharks, looking at this wild card standing as we discussed this on Monday night, 51 points. They're 7-3-0 in their last 10. The team has allowed far too many goals against, Steele. That's been an issue. The defensive end, playing with that grit. Does a player like Kiefer Sherwood, just one guy, answer that question? I don't think so. However, if this is what they're really trying to do, I think Mike Grier is clearly buying into this team maybe more than we should. And that means to me, you're rounding out your roster, Steele. Again, just like I was mentioning in the previous segment, trying to get not a player in Rasmus Andersson, you're not going to get him. But what is the impact on the team around him and the players you can capitalize on? If this team is retooling for a big push in the postseason, down the stretch, another squad you want to be targeting.
Look, originally, I don't think anyone out here saw the vision and saw the plan that Mike Grier had going into this season or
Great
even
point.
a few years ago, but he had one and he has proven everyone wrong that he is the man for the job. And again, just an incredible job so far. Obviously, it's led by Macklin Celebrini. Without him, this team is not even close to a playoff spot. They might not even make the playoffs, even with him on the team. He wouldn't even be in the Hart Trophy race. I mean, this is a player that can turn an organization and a team around, and he has done so. But Mike Grier, again, kudos to him because he's done a fantastic job behind the scenes as in the front office and doing all of those things. I think Kiefer Sherwood, if he can get in the top six, maybe he lands on the top line because he's got dual eligibility on fantasy hockey and Yahoo platforms at least. Maybe he lands on the top line instead, replacing Colin Graff with like you just said, with Macklin Celebrini. Maybe he gets that top power play time. If he does so, I think the value remains high. Obviously, in point leagues, like I said, it continues to fall into that Rasmus Andersson where it slightly drops. He is currently out with injury right now, undisclosed injury. He missed the last 4 games. I don't know if it maybe had to do with this trade happening or he got hurt. But he is on the IR right now. But I think it's a great trade for them just to continue to bolster up the physicality that they maybe lack a little bit at times.
Yep.
He has a plan. If they do make the playoffs, I don't think they're going to make any, a small dent or anything, but this is a team to really keep your eyes on and be excited for if you're a San Jose Sharks fan.
Yaroslav Askarov, Alex Nedeljkovic could be major reasons why we're not expecting them to make too much of a dent in the postseason. However, if a guy like Sherwood, who just the other night had 9 hits, throwing his body around at will, creating a little bit more space for some of these young players, Steele, there is yet another fantasy angle that will directly translate into production. However, very quickly, the Vancouver Canucks, Pettersson, Besser, DeBrusk, names in the mix on the move, Connor Garland, perhaps. Of the names, though, when I look at Elias Pettersson, $11.6 million.
Yeah,
they're going to have to eat far too much money here to make that happen. And I looked at his draft year, Steele. I believe it was 2017. He still has the most points out of his draft year and some really good players. There is value in this player still. Is it a tough sell? Yeah. Has he been a mess? Yeah. But when we're talking about other moves, the player that jumps off the page to me is Jake DeBrusk. Left wing, right wing, he can play on either sides, and this is why. 4 more years of control at only 5.5. Classic case for me of needs a change of scenery very badly. It has not worked out for Jake DeBrusk in Vancouver. Signs of life, streaks of putting up some fantasy production. That's the name to me, Steele, that I see going next. It makes the most sense from the money perspective. I don't know about fantasy value, but maybe a change of scenery here is what is needed.
And that's crazy to say after he just signed a monster contract,
Right.
$5.5 million going through 2030, 2031. The same could be said for, again, Brock Besser. all these guys, Jake DeBrusk, 29, Besser, 28, Elias Pettersson, 27 years old.
Yep.
I'll get a little bit more in depth on them when we come back after the break, but I think this is an absolute fire sale from the Vancouver Canucks, and I wouldn't be shocked if they end up trading Elias Pettersson near the deadline. And obviously, they might have to retain some of his contract and some of his salary. I don't think they're going to have to eat as much as maybe you think or we think out there as a hockey community, but they will have to eat a little bit of Elias Pettersson's, because that is a monster contract from a player that has fallen from grace back from, 4 years ago at this point, career high 102 points, down to 89, down to 45, down to 29 in 40 games this year. He's still on pace to put up more than 45 than he had the year prior, but it is just a fall from grace from a player who was supposed to be the guy, at least offensively, in Vancouver. We'll continue to talk about them after the break. Big time bets as well. Lots of games we love here on Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Once again, thank you so much for making Locked On Fantasy Hockey your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review for your boys here, Flip Livingstone and Steele Rodin. Real quick, we will get to big time bets, but just continuing the conversation of the Vancouver Canucks fire sale. What I expect at least is for some of these players to go. If it's not Elias Pettersson, I do expect Jake DeBrusk to be on the move. It hasn't worked out in the limited amount of time since signing this contract. I could also see potentially a guy like a Vander Kane being on the move. I think a lot of teams in playoff positions would love to have him on their roster going to the playoffs. A guy who brings energy, brings the spark, is great on the power play in front of the net. Kind of like a Corey Perry-esque type of player and type of talent that he brings on a nightly basis. Again, he's only signed for 1 year at $5.125 million. I would really like to see Brock Besser, but obviously he just signed that contract recently, so I don't expect him to be on the move. What about Thatcher Demko? Do you think potentially that they move on from Thatcher Demko and kind of just ride out this Kevin Lankinen stay? He's dealt with some injuries, but if he comes back, he might have some value for a potential playoff team.
Far too much of a talented goaltender for me to see them just moving on from him. Yeah, we know what's been going on with him and his injuries and him being a mess of a fantasy asset. But in terms of what this team needs to do to right the ship, where is there a better option, Steele? I keep hearing this in the media and people saying, you got to address your goaltending. Steve Stamkos needs to go out there and get himself a goaltender. From where? What goaltenders are coming to the rescue right now? And I know things are down bad in Vancouver, but what are you going to have to sacrifice to get yourself a Band-Aid situation?
Exactly.
Tear it down the right way up front. You've got good young players like Tom Willander and some other interesting prospects in the system. Get these guys like Kiefer and Connor Garland and DeBrusk. Get yourselves some seconds, some thirds, some prospect guys, and reload it. If Thatcher Demko's healthy, he is a really good goaltender. So I don't see there being a better option out there, Steele. I think you almost have to de facto rock with Lankinen and Demko, or while Demko's gone, Lankinen and this Topopilo kid or whoever that was. For me right now, you clean house as much as possible. You right the ship. It's been a mess on and off the ice all the way back, Steele, if you remember, to Brucey Boudreau a couple of years ago.
Yes, sir.
Horvat, the fire sale GM, the Rutherford press conference, all of it. So I think they need to tear it down to the studs. And that includes, though, all the players up front. I don't know what you're going to do with Thatcher Demko other than hope he gets healthy and hope he plays to his potential.
Well, that's what we're keeping our eyes on for at least the next 2 months up until the NHL trade deadline. For at least tomorrow, we're keeping our eyes on these big-time bets to win some money to start off the week as well. Flip, I'm absolutely loving my picks here. So if you don't mind, I'm looking at 2 specific games. I want to get one off my chest real quick, and then I'll throw it over to you. Number one, I'm looking at the Tampa Bay Lightning and the San Jose Sharks.
Sure.
I know the Lightning were just on a long road trip. This is going to be their first home back, and typically it doesn't go well for teams coming back home for the first time after a long road trip. I don't care. This is the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're one of the best teams, if not the best team in the league right now after that 11-win streak they were just going on, led by one of the best hockey players in the league, Nikita Kucherov. Kucherov, 2+ points to start off the night. I'm going to throw that in with the Lightning on the puck line against the San Jose Sharks. They are 8-1-1 in the last 10 games. In those 8 wins, 6 of those by 2 or more goals. I'm loving the Lightning on the puck line. They played great at home in their own building. And then Jake Gensel, 3+ shots. He has been shooting the puck out a ton recently. He had an 8-shot night, I believe, the other night for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I don't think it was the Dallas Stars, but maybe the game before that. He had 3 shots in that game, or 4 shots in the game against the Dallas Stars. I'll take the 3+ shots, the 2+ points from Nikita Kucherov, and the Lightning on the puck line for the same game parlay.
You have been red hot as well, so if you're going to listen to anybody, you might as well listen to my friend, Mr. Rodin over here. I hope you get after it with another big parlay, my friend, and I'm liking those picks. So I think it's sandwich o'clock here. I'm taking a look at the Buffalo Sabres at the Nashville Predators as the game for me that jumps off the page for an over bet. I'd be okay to take it at 5.5. I'm happy and comfortable at 6.5. 6 of the last 8 games between these two have gone over the number, and it just feels like, aside from Carolina and Buffalo, their previous game, both of these teams, crooked scoring results. 4-3, 5-2, 5-3, 5-4. Those are the previous 4 for Buffalo. How about Nashville? 7-2, 7-3, 4-3. This one's going over the total in a hurry. Take it at 5.5 and smash it into a big parlay, or dial it back 6.5. I'm feeling comfortable. Second pick, Ottawa into Columbus. This feels like a really tough spot for the Ottawa Senators, having dropped back-to-back 1-goal games in really gutless fashion. They blew it against Montreal the other night. They should have had it against Detroit as well in back-to-backs. They lost both. Until Linus Ullmark comes back, I don't have any confidence in this club. I could see a response, Steele. I could see a Brady Tkachuk anytime goal as well, but I'm leading to the Columbus Blue Jackets on the money line. Previous meeting between these two earlier in the season, the last meeting, neat and tidy, 4-1 game for the Columbus Blue Jackets only a few weeks ago. Give me the Jackets on the money line at home in a good spot. Favorite pick of the night, Winnipeg Jets at home to the St. Louis Blues. Both teams up and down of late, but the angle I'm looking at is anybody talking about Kyle Connor is on pace once again for 97+ points? Last year, nobody. 97 points. He's on pace for 98 points. Nobody's talking about it, probably because how much of a mess Winnipeg Jets have been. But this guy still has 23 goals. He's going to be right there on pace for 40 in his career against the St. Louis Blues. He has 36 points in 28 games, including 16 goals. Hit me with Kyle Connor anytime goal as my lock of the night. I think this is a good spot for Winnipeg at home. He has good numbers against St. Louis, and they tend to allow a lot of shots. I would lean to his shot total as well. In 28 games against the Blues, 103 shots on net in those 28 games. Take it at 4+, 5+, but I really do like Kyle Connor anytime goal lock of the night.
Well, if you're not feeling any of Flip's picks, I think you're absolutely nuts out there, because I love all 3 of them, buddy.
Boom.
And if you're not feeling the same game parlay from that Lightning Sharks game, I have one more same game parlay for you to go on Tuesday night. Number 1, Oilers on the money line against the New Jersey Devils, -164. They have back-to-back shutouts over the last 2 games. Connor Ingram, Tristan Jarry playing some good hockey. Right now, they're without Leon Draisaitl, so it's all Connor McDavid. Connor McDavid, 3+ shots in this game as well. Finishing it off with a Zach Hyman 3+ shot night as well. I wanted to go with the Zach Hyman anytime goal because he's been red hot himself.
Yes, he has.
He's up to 31 points in 31 games since coming back from the injury in mid-November, I believe. He's been absolutely fantastic. It's led by him. It's led by McDavid and Nugent Hopkins on that top line. I'm absolutely loving those 3 picks right there. 2 same-game parlays. Throw them in together. Throw them in separately, along with, honestly, I love all 3 of your picks there, Flip. I'm loving the over 6.5 in that Sabres-Predators game. I'm loving the Kyle Connor anytime goal at home against the St. Louis Blues.
Time to stack that pocketbook up, my friends. Lot more bets coming the rest of the week. We can talk bets in the Discord chat, so make sure you guys jump in there. We'll build a few super parlays and get this paper.
We will get this paper, and thank you so much for tuning in for today's Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod. Make sure you subscribe to get all of the latest episodes. You can follow us on X at LO_FantasyNHL. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 national Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel and audio. Make sure you make your second listen NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL.
Peace.